but I'm pretty angry. This denial of our democracy is something that is fundamentally un-British, anti-British, it's undemocratic, and it shows how rotten the whole system is now in British politics. There is no doubt in my mind, when you look at it, that Britain is broken.
On the day that marks 5 years since Brexit, the biggest democratic vote in our history, that the political establishment did everything they could to try and undermine, it is very unsurprising that another democratic threat is now taking place and coming to the forefront, because it has been led by our now Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the hater and wrecker-in-chief who for years advocated ignoring the democratic will of the British people to leave the European Union. Now this evil bastard is cancelling local elections, terrified of the Reform UK threat that is going to destroy him eventually, trust me. But Brexit King Nigel Farage is making it clear he won't take this bull from slippery Starmer lying down.
I simply could not believe the rumour when I heard that the Labour government, despite any manifesto commitment, want to completely change the shape of local government, and that is now being used by the Conservative Party, who in fact run most of the county councils, as a reason to cancel the elections. No, I'm not making it up. Over half of the county councils in Britain have said, because these changes are coming, we want the elections cancelled on May the 1st. It looks like about 10 million of you who would have had the right to vote on that day will not be able to. I think this is absolutely monstrous. We haven't heard a big debate about it because both Labour and the Conservatives agree. They are terrified of the rise of reform. They know just how well we're going to do on May the 1st, and they've cancelled the elections in many of our strongest areas. Well, I promise you, we will fight those that are still up. We will do well, but I'm pretty angry. This denial of our democracy is something that is fundamentally un-British, anti-British, it's undemocratic, and it shows how rotten the whole system is now in British politics. There is no doubt in my mind, when you look at it, that Britain is broken.
Oh, well, it absolutely is. But it's not just Labour's anti-democratic communist madness that has seen reform storm into the lead in the national polls, because I really believe the tectonic plates of British politics are shifting. And that is partly going to be increased. And certainly this change will be emphasised by a new car crash interview from the former Home Secretary Priti Patel, who just shows no understanding of the damage her party has caused. And as a result, it has gone viral. And Farage is using it to his advantage, posting on X, the Conservative Party are proud of their disastrous record on immigration and would do it again. Please share this video far and wide. And it really is worth watching and breaking down, so let's do it.
But there's also been some downsides since.
Tell me.
Well, let's have a look at the graph. Net migration.
Yeah.
Look at that. That was on your watch. Where exactly on that graph were you the Home Secretary in charge of Britain?
So, well, we should first of all recognise that we ended free movement.
Yeah, you ended free movement for Europeans and you threw the borders open to the rest of the world, and the graph...
We always said that in Brexit, Harry.
No, come on. That is not fair.
So,
you did not say we're going to hit 1.2 million net migrants.
No, we did not say that.
Allow 1.2 million people into the country.
So let me finish.
In 1 year.
So let me finish. Brightest and the best come into our country. People on skilled work visas.
Is that the brightest and the best?
We've always said, well, look at it's legal migration, Harry. It's legal. People who come here and work and contribute to our economy.
Doesn't mean it's
brightest and the best. Look at the points-based immigration system. For the first time ever, Harry, let me give you some facts.
Go on.
For the first time ever, we have a points-based immigration system, counting people in and out. You can turn off the immigration system at any stage in terms of what our economy needs and doesn't need. You know, the government should have done more, absolutely, on skills and training Brits.
Did every one of those 1.2 million people that flooded into the country in the last 3 years, did they need to come here?
So what would you say to the Ukrainians that are in our country?
I would say that's 300,000.
I mean, it's insane. There's more, but let me just show you quickly what Reform UK's Rupert Lowe had to say about that. The Tories did not allow the best and brightest in their mass immigration splurge. They welcomed hundreds of thousands of low-skilled migrants who don't properly contribute, integrate, or often even speak English. I won't ever forgive the Conservative Party, and nor should you. But that car crash interview got worse.
Came here through
Come on, you're
conflict and
fudging
all
the
rest of it.
numbers there.
I'm not fudging the numbers. I'm telling you
300,000
now.
Ukrainians on a temporary fix is not 1.2 million people coming to this country to take jobs that you promised were going to go to sun readers and people who voted
Those
for
are
Brexit.
skilled visas, Harry. We made it quite clear. These are people that work, skilled visa routes, all the skills in terms of NHS, people that are working in our National
That
Health
old
Service. We
chestnut.
had something called a pandemic. You remember health and social
You're fine
care
with that
visas
graph?
as well. I'm not fine with it. I haven't said
Would you like
that.
to apologise to all the
I
people that
have
voted
not.
Brexit for the fact that you misled them and saying we're
I
going to
did
take
not
back control
mislead
of our
them.
borders and then you threw them open
That's
and
not
let in
true.
millions of
That is totally distortionary, and that's not true. And to be quite frank, we made it quite clear it'd be people from the rest of the world, people with skills based on our economy. And I think people should apologise for those who are saying that actually...
You would like an apology?
People in the pandemic came here, health and social care visas. What would have happened to our NHS? Are we now saying, are you and others saying we don't need those people in our NHS?
The NHS is being overwhelmed because of our immigration numbers. But look, an important fact check from Outspoken contributor Connor Tomlinson. He said Priti Patel is just lying. Doctors and nurses comprise less than 3% of the visa issues since she changed immigration laws in 2021. Only 5% of visas each year are given to likely net taxpayers. A study of 70,000 health and social care visas issued between July 2022 to 2023 found 11,000 vacancies were filled. They didn't fill vacant positions and were outnumbered by dependents. The gaslighting is unreal, and the unwanted economic, cultural, and demographic change visited upon our country is unforgivable. And let me just say, the reaction to that interview has been one of horror for those who somehow think the Tories can turn it all around. Let me take you through it. Rachel Wolf, she just said simply, "This is one of the most catastrophic political interviews I have ever seen." Mike Jones broke it down a little bit more, writing, "Is Kemi Badenoch facing a full-blown crisis after Patel's interview? Short answer, yes. No question about it. First, this is a total narrative shift for the Tories on immigration, moving from hesitant contrition to an outright, unapologetic defence of bad policy. That alone makes it a crisis. But it's also a personal disaster for Kemi, whose decision to bring Patel into her shadow cabinet now looks like staggeringly poor judgment. Most of the British people won't see this clip, but plenty of people will. The big parties, the journalists, the strategists, and right now they'll be sharpening their pens and keyboards getting ready to tear into it." I mean, interestingly, it was left to Suella Braverman, who was one of Priti's following, she succeeded Priti, sorry, is what I'm trying to say, as Home Secretary, who wrote, "The British people do not owe us an apology. The last Conservative government failed to lower immigration despite promises to do so. I tried, but was repeatedly blocked by the Cabinet. Every one of us in the Conservative Party has only one thing to say about our record on immigration: sorry." But Matt Goodwin was having none of that, simply stating, "I don't know about you, but I will never vote Tory again." And the new data shows Priti, and this is damning, would be booted from her Essex seat in a turquoise wave. And according to the projections there, Labour would lose over half their seats, that's across the country, and almost all of Essex would turn turquoise. So politics, as usual, is over, which might mean we can eventually get a real Brexit. Now, the Superstar panel. And it's so great to have them both back for the first time in 2025. Conservationist TV presenter James Glancy and Mayuran Senthilnathan, a rising star for Reform UK. But James Glancy, you were, of course, a Brexit Party MEP. You worked with Nigel Farage to get us out. And I think without the Brexit Party, we might still be in the European Union some way. Do you agree with him on this fifth Brexit day that Britain is broken?
I mean, 100% broken. I mean, there were so many issues that you've highlighted that show that it's broken. Let's start with the immigration issue. Now, the Conservative Party, half of them agree, or a small number of them agree. The Robert Jenrick wing agrees that immigration is out of control and something needs to be done. But I would say a large number of them, if not a majority, plan to do this with immigration, and they believe in integration, and immigration is something that's part and parcel of the Conservative Party, and we've seen that since David Cameron was elected as part of the coalition. They said they would reduce immigration, and they did the exact opposite. What I don't understand is if they really want to get back into power or they want to revive their poll numbers, why they're not saying we made a mistake and we're going to correct it. And what correct it means is too many people have come here, they can't stay. We will revoke those visas. We will reform indefinite leave to remain, which means if you've been here for 5 years, you can then apply for indefinite leave to remain and remain here forever and claim benefits. They're not saying any of that. They're accepting it as, oh, that happened in the past and will reduce numbers in the future. So there is no understanding within the party of the damage they've done. And a certain element like Priti Patel believes they did the right thing. And I think you need to go back to Boris Johnson. When he was mayor, he tried to force through an amnesty for, at the time, they believed there was 400,000 illegal immigrants in London. He wanted an amnesty so they would be given citizenship or a path to citizenship and they could remain, which would have created the first Boris wave. But he was blocked by Labour and the Conservatives at the time. So I think you've got to understand the mentality of these sort of plastic conservatives, is that mass immigration is part and parcel of the left of the Conservative Party. And that starts with Boris Johnson. And I'll just finish my point here, as you're talking about the worst Britons. I think Boris Johnson should be number one on the worst Briton list, because he completely, he conned us all. He lied to us, and he has completely undermined this country through mass uncontrolled immigration.
Oh, James. Okay, where do I go with that? I think the Boris legacy is more complicated than that. And I'll put this up to Mayuran, because here's the reality, Mayuran. Yes, without Nigel Farage, there would be no Brexit. But also without Boris Johnson, there would be no Brexit, because a populist figure was required to force Brexit through our despicable House of Commons, which had done everything to undermine that vote. But first, the reason you're watching this show is because you know that these days it's almost impossible to trust the mainstream media or the so-called fact checkers who claim to patrol social media. And that's for a very good reason, given the Brexit debate, COVID debacle, and demonisation of Donald Trump. But I have the solution. Today's sponsor, Ground News, was created by a former NASA engineer to provide you with the only safe way to consume the headlines. So you can go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out for yourself. But what I want to do now is show you this incredible website and app in action. So what we're going to do is take the recent story, you will have heard us talk about it on the show, Elon Musk falling out with Nigel Farage all over Tommy Robinson, the political prisoner. The left-wing legacy media tried to whip this up and destroy all three men. But what's great when you look at the story on Ground News, and you can do this, by the way, with any story in the news, not just this one, but this is just one example. So Ground News has collated the 230 sources in one place. It then instantly shows how the story is being covered by the media, broken down by whether those organizations lean to the left or right. It's called its bias distribution service. Then you can see every article about the topic broken down by the political position and ownership of the publication. So in this case, it shows that Fox News, an outlet on the right, gave a fair analysis, whereas the likes of Mediaite and The Independent on the left didn't, which isn't a surprise, I guess. But what's so great about this app and website is that Ground News gets to know you personally, providing you with news stories you're interested in. You can choose lots of different categories like Brexit or Donald Trump or Premier League football. But it also analyzes your own biases and comes up with potential blind spots that you might not be hearing about. So I know you love the news, that's why you're watching Outspoken, but you probably don't trust the legacy media. Ground News gives you the tools to understand the truth about what is really going on in the world. I can speak personally and say it's now the only way I read the news. I have the app on my phone. It allows me to see through media bias and manipulative narratives without having to rely on the MSM to define what is true. So go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. You can subscribe through my link for 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use for unlimited access. Ground News is all subscriber funded. For less than a Netflix subscription, actually, it means you can get all the world's news in one place and think for yourself. It truly has been a real game changer, I guess, for a news junkie like me. So let me repeat the address: ground.news/outspoken, or you can use the QR code on screen if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. And the description is the link is in the description in the show notes below. But now, back to the show.
I can agree with you to an extent, Dan. I mean, the civil service, you had that most of Parliament were against Brexit. So he had to really bulldoze Brexit through an anti-democratic Parliament. So let's give him credit where credit's due. But to be honest with you, I kind of agree with James. I actually think there should be a hall of shame for Tory prime ministers, and Boris Johnson should be front and centre along with Cameron, Theresa May, and Rishi Sunak. Because what's happened here, and why I'm so enraged by what Priti Patel said, is that there is a cultural assassination that has actually happened to this country. We talk about the economic value, I think it's 38 billion the Boris wave has caused us in terms of all the families and dependents that have come over until 2028 that we're going to have to pay for. But it's a crime against the British citizens. And that should haunt all the Tory and Conservative backbenchers and frontbenchers. And what I saw in Priti Patel was there wasn't this instinctive humility and apologetic nature. Now, people might say she had a bad interview, maybe she was prepped a little bit badly, but it should be instinctive. The gravity of what they've done to this country there should be an instinctive guilt and an instinctive sense of apology. All of that should come instinctively. It shouldn't have to be prepped at all. And what I saw in Priti Patel was absolute indignation, stubbornness, obstinance, and defiance. And I think that is unforgivable. Culture takes thousands of years to develop, Dan. Takes thousands of years to develop, and it has been decimated by the likes of Boris, by Priti Patel, and I will never forgive them. You saw in Parliament just now in the PMQs, there was one MP who kind of raised concerns about the ONS projections for a further population explosion over the next 7 years. And what did Keir Starmer do? He just battered him away and said, go and ask your leader. It means that on immigration, which is the #1 issue affecting this country, the Conservatives cannot offer opposition, let alone government. And that's why there should be a merger between Reform and the Tory party, I think. But it should be a merger that's based on the cannibalisation of the Conservatives by the Reform party and by Nigel Farage.
Interesting. I really like that term, cultural assassination, because I think it does sum up the absolute horror of what we're facing. And I would argue a willful blindness, actually, from our leaders to just ignore it and to demonize, by the way, folk like us and good ordinary Brits who are prepared to talk about it. James, what do you make of the fact that Starmer's now becoming even more anti-democratic and trying to cancel these local elections, another thing Nigel is furious about?
It's a really important point, but you've got to see the wider context. So I don't think these particular cancelling these particular elections is as important as the wider issues that they're going to gerrymander the boundaries of the new constituency or the new regional councils or whatever they're going to call them to be they'll be weighted in favour of Labour, of where Labour populations live, urban populations, and away from country people. So, democracy, the whole point of a local democracy is that people can be involved, and if that feels representative, by creating these super councils or whatever they're going to do, government will be further away from local people and local issues. And so it's very important to highlight just not only is this anti-democratic, but it's very much gerrymandering the vote system or the system in their favour. And the second point is this is part of a wider package of giving votes to under 16s, giving votes to foreigners. We know that this year or in the next 2 years, a bill will be put forward before Parliament to enlarge the franchise in order to dilute the vote of British people. They're giving votes to people under 16, even though you can join the military, but you can't go off to fight a war. You can't drink in a pub, but they want to give people the responsibility, people with no life experience, the opportunity to vote, because they believe those people will probably be gusting left and more likely to vote Labour. So this is part of a much bigger attack on Britain, undermining the foundations of our institutions, which of course, these undermining the foundations of Britain began in 1997 with the Human Rights Act, with the Constitutional Reform Act of 2005, making judicial activism the system whereby the government can do nothing. I mean, there's a whole package that started in 1997, and it's a continuation of that toxic legacy, the socialist Marxist legacy to destroy Britain.
Indeed, and we cannot let Britain be destroyed. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go wherever you are.